So it was actually 1993 when Don Peppers and Martha Rogers published a book called The One-to-One Future. Well, over the last 2.5 decades, we've been told that personalization is around the corner. Conference after conference, this is the age of personalization. But are we there yet? I'd like to welcome our distinguished panel that's going to help kind of really discuss and kind of dig deep into this issue. First, Jeffrey Glueck, CEO of Foursquare. Kenneth Purcell, founder and CEO of iSeatz, Inc. Edward Silver, Chief Technology Officer, Corporate Brands, Flight Center Travel Group Limited. And last but not least, Simon Whitcombe, Vice President, North America, Global Marketing Solutions, Facebook, Inc. All right, gentlemen, let's try to dig into this topic a little bit. So you've heard my introduction. We've been in this kind of wait and see mode around personalization. Can you just each perhaps just talk a little bit about your company's focus on this, and do you think we're there yet? Let's begin with Facebook.
Yeah, I would say that Facebook is built on a foundation of personalization. Starting with your newsfeed experience on Facebook and Instagram. That newsfeed experience is unique to you. Nobody else has the same feed. And that feed is generated by very sophisticated machine learning that's making a prediction of the content you would like to see based on what we know about you. Our ads platform works in exactly the same way. So we are making a prediction on the ads that you see, on the likelihood of you responding to that ad in the way that the advertiser has bid, whether that be simply watching a video or clicking through to a website or making a purchase or booking a trip. And it works, right? So I would ask the question, how many people here in the room today, show of hands, have bought something on Facebook or Instagram that they had no intention of buying when they got on Facebook or Instagram, right? So it works. The shoes I'm wearing today are the result of a personalized ad on Instagram, and this really works. So in travel, the way that we've thought about this is using the information we know about people, can we make a prediction of where somebody is in their travel journey and serve them very personalized content that is relevant at that specific stage of the journey.
So do you find a difference between the Facebook types of targeted ads versus the Instagram type of ads as far as how they flow within the travel process?
Unsurprisingly, the demographic on Instagram is a little younger. Travel is definitely a number 1 and number 2 interest on Instagram. Facebook is a little older, but no, we don't really see a difference in terms of the stage of the journey where we tend to focus.
Great. So Ed, you're representing Flight Center, but you are very active in the FCM subsidiary, which is a corporate travel market.
Yeah.
What do you see happening with personalization in business travel?
Yeah, so at Flight Center in the corporate space, we've been focused on personalization for a long time. I actually think we've been ahead of the curve in many ways, because in corporate travel, you have to have a one-to-one relationship with that traveler. You have to know where they are they in a risk zone, do they need help? And so we've been in advanced states of contextualized offers, contextualized types of activity. So when someone lands, should something have happened, a change in the trip or something on the ground, geopolitical, we are able to actively insert ourselves into that experience to make sure they're safe, to get them to a different place. And so we've had advanced AI in this area for a while, and more to come in this space as we get further and further out of just the in-trip experience to the pre-trip and post-trip experience.
Great.
And no, Norm, I didn't buy my shoes on Instagram.
Yeah, I got these because my my son said, "This is what the cool kids wear." So, trying to keep up in the Silicon Valley.
Good luck with that, Ian.
So yeah, I'm not exactly a cool kid. So Kenneth, you do a lot of work with lots of different travel suppliers, lots of projects around personalization. I know you've published a number of different reports around this. Can you talk a little bit from kind of your experience in this area from a software vendor?
Sure. So we intersect where I'd say loyalty and travel bookings and travel and lifestyle bookings work together. And I think my opinion is probably different than maybe others. I think and we typically enable brands to allow people to book direct related third-party add-ons to their trip. Or for American Express, we enable you to book travel on American Express. And I'd say that in many cases, what I believe to be the case is that the loyalty systems and CRMs and past purchase data are not integrated. And I think, frankly, the travel sellers are not there yet. I think we've surveyed the market and done a personalization, analysis, and I think we're doing a very good job at one-to-one, or we're doing a good job at targeting people via email, but the post-click experience just isn't differentiated yet.
It's very, very interesting. And how about with Foursquare? You provide so much location data to the industry, kind of behind the scenes. How does that work with the personalization efforts?
So I think we're in the first inning of personalization, but we are seeing actual personalization and at a one-to-one level happening now. And I'll give you a couple examples. But first, for 30 seconds, for those who don't know, Foursquare, of course, started as a check-in app and still does over 1 billion check-ins a year. But 99.5% of our businesses is a location technology platform for thousands of other businesses, analytics, enablement. Some examples, if you took an Uber here without your Lyft code, you typed the Diplomat into Uber, that's us. If you tag a tweet right now from the Diplomat ballroom, that's our technology inside Twitter. If you get a Snapchat geofilter here, that's our technology helping Snap do that. Our content's in Apple Maps and lots of other things. So as you get to one-to-one personalization, Foursquare offers developer tools, and I'll give you an example. Personalization is both who are you and the kinds of places that you like to go is an element, but it's also where you are right at this moment. It's being relevant to the context or contextual computing. And so one of the best examples I've seen of this is in the adjacent segment of dining. We work with TouchTunes, which is the music service that Apple just announced its partnership with. And when you arrive at 40,000 bars and restaurants, our technology inside the TouchTunes app will send your iPhone or your Android a ping, and it'll say, Norm, are you at the perfect pint? You love Jay-Z. That's the #1 artist here. Get the party started. That message at the right time, right person, right place, that's personal to your music taste and the location, grew their business 50% overnight. We see this with people like coupons.com or iHeartRadio that we power, where you get a very local, specific message at the right time, right place. We see 300 to 400% higher click-through rates and engagement because it's, hey, you're at Walgreens, don't forget the $5 off coupon that your app has that you signed up for. So that kind of one-to-one messaging, right person, right place, is already starting to happen. We power the Hilton Honors search app. I won't bore you with 100 examples of how we work in the travel industry, but we now power the Hilton Honors app. And the problem for a mid-trip experience was always, you don't always have the concierge with you. So now you can open the Hilton Honors app, and we combined all the concierge recommendations with the Foursquare 60 million person community of reviews at 100 million places. And now you can ask, tell me a good coffee shop around the corner with free Wi-Fi, and it'll instantly answer and show you the favorite concierge places in the Foursquare community. But Hilton is learning, if you bookmark a place that's an organic vegan place versus a cocktail bar that's known for Moscow mules, Hilton is taking that in and starting to think about how that could personalize your experience. And we have lots more examples like that. So it's starting to happen, but the perfect one-to-one, there's still lots more to do.
Yeah. And obviously, since the Peppers-Rogers book, there's been a lot of technological changes that are facilitating this move towards one-to-one. Kenneth, you were talking about some of the challenges, though, and we see so many startups, and every startup now talks about machine learning and natural language processing and all the different AI tools. But don't you need a lot of data in order to do this? I mean, Facebook, you certainly have that data, but do the travel suppliers? Do the travel intermediaries have enough data to really do this? When we start with Ken.
So I think of personalization as best exemplified in the movie Minority Report. When Tom Cruise is walking through the lobby of that building, right?
Oh, yeah.
And they're reading his retina, and they're showing him very specific ads for experiences. And that, for me, that's when we're going to be there, right? And I think that requires a whole bunch of data. I think Facebook is probably the closest to being able to do that in the digital frame. If you're not a large, travel player that's collecting past stay and purchase history, marrying that with other unstructured data that's out there and buying sort of panel data about what the customers and where they go when they leave your site, and then integrating your loyalty programs, I don't know that you're able to personalize. So I don't think anyone's doing that well, if at all, right? So I think the data is there. The tools are becoming there, but for a startup to get there, I don't know how you acquire that scale.
There's a lot of difference between reminding somebody about a Walgreens certificate versus having the right experience when you enter the hotel or the right experience on the airline. What's the gap here, other than what Kenneth has mentioned as far as the integration between systems? And when we have these tools, someone like Facebook is able to use massive amount of data. Location is the key in your mind, do you think?
Well, obviously, every company needs to have some imagination about how to apply it to their own user experience. But you have Facebook and Google with these massive walled gardens, and one of the things that I do like to remind brands building things is that when you sort of rely on Facebook and Google, you don't get a lot of data back. They are very good at what they do. But we have profiles of 150 million opted-in US consumers, and the places they go, this is a mom who likes to go to yoga studios and shops at Whole Foods. This is a college student who goes to dive bars and McDonald's frequently. I mean, we have profiles of lots of folks, and we are now enabling CDPs and CRMs for other brands to get access to that kind of data at the scale that a Facebook or Google offer, but you can't bring that data out of Facebook. You have to use it within Facebook. So enabling that, like you do need a partner that is scaled. The last thing I would say on this is, we work with TripAdvisor. We provide the location awareness layer for TripAdvisor's app now, Foursquare's Pilgrim SDK. And that's built off 14 billion times that real consumers have verified which store or restaurant or bar they are at. That is the machine learning fuel that you need, because you need accurate training data that's multi-sensor off Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and GPS. You can't build that yourself. You want a partner. But there are folks here. We're trying to be a Switzerland to enable that kind of personalization for the rest of the industry, because Google and Facebook will do it well, but I think for the rest of the industry, they need their own space to innovate. So
Simon, this is a good opportunity to respond to that.
Yeah, I think we have different kinds of challenges. On occasion, let me start with an interesting challenge we've had in travel, which is having enough data of Facebook to train a model to drive consistent incrementality and business performance. Isn't as easy as you might think. It's not. I'm not quite sure it's the nirvana of Facebook that you were sharing. We built machine learning really focused on this inspiration and discovery moment, and this inspiration and discovery moment has played beautifully well in e-commerce and retail, primarily because there's a very short consideration window. So you see something that you didn't know you wanted, and then in a few short clicks, if the customer experience is great, that product can be on its way to you. Travel doesn't work like that. Travel is a much longer consideration window, and that consideration has multiple touch points along the way. And being able to build machine learning sophisticated with enough training data to understand that is a challenging engineering exercise. We have just, in the second half of this year, started rolling out machine learning that is specific to that travel journey. It's taken us a long time, but we're there. I wanted to share that with everybody today. And the early results on this machine learning are very encouraging. We haven't been as significant a player in travel as we have been in, let's say, e-commerce. But I think right now we're on a path to be able to drive much more meaningful business outcomes in this particular category.
So on the corporate side, talk about meaningful outcomes. I mean, the type of data that we sit on allows us to do things like this. You're about to take a trip, but you need pre-trip approval from your manager. We can tell you the percentage likely chance that your manager is going to approve that trip. We can actually tell your manager the percentage likely chance that you're going to cancel the trip at the last minute. So we are able to use that data and the machine learning layer to predict analytics that actually help make really intelligent business decisions pre-trip and in-trip. So it's a very different perspective.
At the end of the day, though, isn't it all about reducing friction also, that you're trying to make it easier to travel? I mean, a lot of the focus seems to be on the advertising model. You know, how do you do a targeting advertising? Isn't that old already? You know, targeted advertising is to the point where people almost expect it and then sometimes feels a little kind of intrusive. You know, where is the actual personalization within the experience of the trip?
Yeah, we experience, it's fascinating, right? Because we have micro-targeting, and many performance marketing industries, travel being a great example of this, have really built their businesses around this ability to micro-target. Machine learning, and certainly the sophistication of our machine learning has improved so much, we don't want you to target anymore. In fact, that's the last thing that we want you to do. You know, fast forward to where we are today, our recommendation with our platforms is to target the widest possible audience that you can and allow the machine learning to make a predestination recommendation, recommend a hotel or a destination, or recommend an activity to do while you're in market. And that's difficult for many of our partners to get over that hump and let go and trust machine learning to do what they've been doing themselves for 10 or 15 years. So in the e-commerce category, we've been very successful at getting partners over that hump, and we're really just starting in the travel category.
Yeah, I would like to add, I think that's a great question. I mean, we help companies like Hilton with micro-targeting to acquire users, especially from rivals who they don't know, that this is a rival frequent stayer. But where it gets really interesting is improving the travel planning and the mid-trip experience and on-trip experience. So, we worked with Trivago, which is live now, to add, as you're booking a hotel, the things around that hotel, the best restaurants in the city that are nearby, the best attractions, the best cafes and the nightclubs. So you can get a feel for, do I want to be in this neighborhood of Paris or a different neighborhood, which really matters in the long tail of small hotels that don't have their own restaurants and services. And so you can visualize that experience. But then on trip, working with Airbnb, this is very early, but on their guides product, right? So the hosts at an Airbnb all leave you a little list of 10 things that they as a host might recommend, a local breakfast spot or whatever. But you forget about them as you go out your trip if you don't take that piece of paper off the dining table. So now you can use our APIs inside the Airbnb app to find those things. But what we'd really like to do is what we're doing with TripAdvisor, which is as you walk around, if you're right around the corner from a great tapas place in Barcelona, you get a ping and it says, your friend Norm loves the tapas place around the corner. You're 50 yards from it. Go in and order the crab legs. We've done that at Foursquare already. We do that today, but starting to get leaders like TripAdvisor and Airbnb going into that trip experience, that's where the future, I think, is. And you're adding so much more value than just advertising.
Well, it seems like the challenge with travel, apart from perhaps the business segment, is the lack of frequency, right? So if you're a leisure travel, you might go on a vacation, you might go to see family, you might go to some type of funeral or some type of emergency event, medical thing, and you act completely differently. And even who you travel with, if I'm traveling with my wife alone or if I'm traveling with my grown children, it's a different experience. So how do you personalize when the persona is so different depending on the trip?
I think that the credit card companies have the most obvious opportunity to intersect and disrupt this space because they know your past history of purchases. They have all of that data. They know customers like me, when I spend this amount of money in my profile, typically buy these things when I'm in this market. If they could figure out a way to activate those recommendations, for me, they have the most probable chance to disrupt this space.
But this is not a new topic. Why hasn't that happened?
I think frankly, I think they're just figuring out how to aggregate that data and bring it to the edge and then enable recommendations. I think it's a.
I'd like to comment on that. Obviously, we Foursquare personas of those 150 million people, we compete with the credit card companies to some extent to bring those personas to travel companies and retailers and the like. And one of the challenges, the credit card data companies have incredible data and incredible internal marketing programs. Amex marketing is legendary, but they keep it inside their garden. And if you're Visa, you can't tell Hilton who Marriott's customers are. But Foursquare data comes from this opt-in panel, so we can identify Marriott frequent stayers when we work with Hilton and the like, because we're not encumbered like the credit card data. So I think there's a lot of sources that people can tap into. What's lacking is the imagination and the engineering and product imagination to go implement that stuff, because the tools are there and you're starting to see it happen, and consumers like it if they've opted in. And that, you have to your point, like, you're different on a business trip than you are with your kids on a family trip. But if it's gentle and it's opt-in, it doesn't feel intrusive. It still feels.
Well, that's a good segue to the next discussion, which is this trade-off between privacy and personalization. And some of our stats are showing that it was like about 52% of U.S. travelers like recommendations, but 60% of the travelers will not download an app if they feel like it violates their privacy. It's that creepiness factor. When it gets a little too personal, they know too much about me, I'm not comfortable. How are we going to live in a world with one-to-one marketing if that's the way the consumer feels?
I think the answer is transparency and control. I think both of those things are incredibly important. I work at Facebook, so it's apt that I answer this question first. I think that that's where we're focusing our energy. It's privacy is incredibly important. Nothing I can say on a stage here today is going to be more meaningful than acting upon that, and that's really our focus at Facebook. So we've rolled out a number of different programs, really focused on this idea of transparency and control. So off Facebook activity is a product that we've rolled out partially in the US. It will be rolled out. It's being rolled out slowly. It will be completely launched at some point early next year, which allows people to understand the websites and mobile apps that are passing data about them to Facebook. It will give them both transparency and it will give them control. We've completely redesigned and made much more granular our privacy settings so people can really understand what data is being used. We've made it much easier for people to download the information that we know about them and delete that information if they so choose. And then we now have an ads library where people can look at every ad associated with the page. And obviously in the political arena, we can go much deeper than that in terms of the information we can share about it. It's just the beginning, though. I think this is going to be the key issue in personalization over the next 5 to 10 years. I think we're going to listen to our community. We're going to listen to our partners and regulators and make improvements to this over time.
Any other comments about privacy versus personalization?
Yeah, I think people will make a choice. They'll determine whether they prefer privacy or whether they prefer an enhanced experience that can be provided by suppliers like us and providers like us. So it'll be that trade-off, but hopefully that person makes the decision.
I think if you're not willing to download the app, it's probably a judgment on the brand itself, not necessarily the privacy.
That's a good point.
Look, I think consumers should be in control, and there should be true informed consent. And by the way, I don't think a 200-page terms and conditions written by some crazy lawyer is informed
is
consent.
the answer, right?
It's got to be very clear up front how the data will be used. I wrote a piece in the New York Times saying that it should be illegal to ask for location unless you were providing a service to the user. And I think, and if it'd be good to see Facebook make improvements here. Senator Hawley recently noted that even if you opt out of location sharing on Facebook, Facebook still collects IP address type location. So I think consumers are right to be skeptical, and they're going to go with brands they trust to treat that data properly, even when you opt in.
And Jeff, you get the last word. Thank you. So I want everyone to thank our panel for a great discussion.
Thank you.
Jeff, Kenneth, Ed, Simon.
All right. Thanks.
This way.